Gone are the days of formal etiquette. So, what should you do in the maddening social situations you face every day? How long should you take to respond to that message? What should you say to get out of that gathering? When you start seeing a new therapist, how do you talk about it with your first therapist whom you are still seeing? This is No Etiquette, the podcast where we address modern etiquette questions in a nonsense fashion. I'm Vivian Lee, coming to you from Singapore, and joining me is my best friend, Sophia Bose in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Hi, Sophia.
Hi, Vivian. I know that you don't like this question, but I will ask it anyway. How are you?
I despise that question, and I'm going to try asking it to you back this week. How are you? What has happened in your week?
So I have discovered something called the Eternal Pencil. And yes. So it was advertised as a pencil that lasts as long as 100 pencils. And I don't know exactly if that's accurate, but so far it seems like it is. I've been using it for all my notes. It writes slightly lighter than a typical pencil. I don't quite exactly know the names of the gradients.
I know the names of the gradients, and I'm going to forget them now that
Tell me
I've
more.
Okay. There's HB and 2B. You remember this?
I think 2B is like the darker one, right?
Yep.
Or not?
2B is the darker one, and it goes as dark as 6B.
Wow. Yeah, I did not know this.
Yeah, I think like if you get like a really soft drawing pencil, I think it goes. Yeah.
Okay.
And now, of course, now that I want to say H stands for hard or something. It like it has to do with how much of it rubs off on the page.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And tell me how this Eternal Pencil works, because it's not a graphite pencil, correct?
Correct. I think it's an alloy. I looked it up briefly. I think it's an alloy of I'm not going to remember this. What I do remember is apparently there's two kinds of Eternal pencils. One, which is like the real one, apparently, which is the one that's the alloy, and the other one is just a separate thing that's just this is going to be very non-specific because I just don't remember any of it. But there's supposed to be one that's realer than the other. And I think the one I have is the one that's less real. But I've still been enjoying using it. And yeah, that's my experience with this pencil.
And it erases like a normal pencil?
It erases like a normal pencil. You can get it in different colors. So I have all the different colors. You can kind of screw them on. It's interesting. Like you'll have a base, which looks like a pencil, but then you can kind of screw it on. So you can actually replace it if you need. So technically, if you want your 200th pencil, you could make that happen. But yeah, you don't have to sharpen it. It seems like it's harder than a normal pencil. So like when you're writing with it, it doesn't.
You got to press harder for it to rub off.
Yeah, and I think and then the pointy piece stays pointy longer because of whatever the material is.
And it doesn't break, right? Like if you drop it on the point, will it break like a regular pencil?
I haven't dropped it on its point yet, and I don't know.
Oh, you haven't lived. If you haven't dropped a pencil on its point, you're not living dangerously enough.
No. I would never do that. My gosh, who does that? It's a travesty. Why would you drop your pencils?
I feel like it I've dropped and it always happens when it's new. I've dropped so many pens and pencils right on the tip. Like of all the ways you could drop it, just in the most spectacular fashion.
I know. I have never dropped a pencil. In fact, there was a girl I went to school with when I was a kid, and she used to bite her pencils, and and then I started like noticing how a lot of people actually bite their pencils, and it drove me insane. Like I couldn't deal with I was like, why would you deface your pencils in this manner? I would get personally offended. But I take care of my pencils. I don't drop them. I don't bite them.
Well, okay. So okay, before I tell you the little I know of pencils, I am curious. So as a lefty, I despise writing in pencil. I always have, because you just smudge it everywhere. It gets in the back of your hand. The worst thing is it makes you look like you're very sloppy. And it's not your fault. It's what happens when you write with a pencil. I think since I got out of like the grades where you had to use a pencil in school, I've never looked back.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
almost never, if
wow.
I can help it. Like
I
even
don't think
math,
I've
I
ever
would do
seen
in
you. I've never
pen.
seen you use a pencil,
Yeah,
actually, come to think
don't
of
use
it.
pencils.
Oh,
I'm very
wow.
strict about writing implements, but pencils are an
Wow.
absolute, unless like Dungeons and Dragons is like the one time or something I will use
Oh,
a pencil and erase it and stuff. But what do you write in
yeah.
pencil?
Like, everything, like my notes and such.
Uh-huh.
Um, sometimes so earlier today, Vivian, you and I were talking, um, and you mentioned something about Greek gods fighting over the apple of discord, and it's a story I don't know much about, and I
Mhm.
made a little note to look it up later, and I made it in pencil.
Mm.
So like little reminders to myself, things that are,
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
I,
I've
I
barely
use
used
pencil.
pencil in the
Yeah.
longest time. Yeah.
I've actually been really enjoying using this pencil. I use pencils to draw things. So, like, I am about
Oh.
to move to a new apartment in
Woohoo.
August, and I have been drawing like the floor plan out in my notebook and like planning where
Oh.
my furniture will go. And it's like
Uh-huh.
easier to erase and sort of move it around.
I think it's for
Mm.
people who like drawing, like the tactile feel of a pencil is
Yeah.
so preferable to most
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can kind of
Yeah.
see that.
Yes.
And there's a lot. I think there's more interaction between a pencil and the page you're writing on than a pen. Maybe
I think so.
matters a little more.
Matters a little more.
So,
The smudge thing, when you talked about that,
mm,
the eternal pencil does not smudge as much.
because it's so hard. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not a.
doesn't smudge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. When you mentioned smudging, I actually tried to smudge it. And
Oh,
yeah, it doesn't smudge.
yeah. That's a
Yeah.
plus. And does it
Very
write
cool.
as fine as like a mechanical pencil, or like is it more like a regular pencil?
Not as fine as a mechanical pencil, I would say. I guess it depends on how you're holding it, but yeah,
Okay.
for more precision, I would still go with a mechanical pencil.
Oh,
I actually have one right
So,
next to it, so
oh,
I alternate
ready
using them.
for all tasks. So
Oh my gosh,
I
I
this
don't
is
have it. Yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, totally normal pencil. You have everything. Yeah, you have all your pencil needs met.
I
Whereas
do.
I have done my best to have no pencil needs to meet because I
Oh,
dislike writing with them so.
uh-huh.
So I have recently in my stationary game, a monumental shift has taken place. I don't even think I told you this.
What is this?
Wow.
I wanna know.
Okay, so since I was 12 years old,
Uh-huh.
I only wrote I've only written with Pilot G2 pens. I know this sounds
Wow.
very
Okay.
specific, but I think I made a deliberate choice because like you take a big exam in Singapore when you're 12, and so maybe
Uh-huh.
at the start of that year I was like, "All right, I'm gonna get my game together." I'm
Oh,
like, when
wow.
I have like a big exam, what I would do
Yeah.
is I would just like try to hold all factors constant, so I would only use this pen, right? Like
Ah.
man, when I took the SATs, I had a bunch of weird, like I would only use the same pen or pencil because I thought it would help me recall things I had done with that pen or
Aw.
pencil. I
Oh
like
my
had a
gosh.
particular, I had this, I thought it was so cool. I had this like caffeinated chapstick that I had bought
Really?
online from some geek
Wow.
website, and I would use it because I thought it would stimulate recall. I think
I love that you did this, and I mean,
uh,
I love that you did this.
I don't know if it's true or not, but I think it could, at the very least, it's like an anxiety calmer, right? You just, everything's the same. You have no unexpected
Yeah.
surprises. You're only using the same kind of pen. So from the time I was 12,
Yeah.
I would only use, okay, so I would use the black ones. I would usually,
Uh-huh.
I prefer the .7. That's a
Uh-huh.
little, the
It's a
ball is
little
wider than the
yeah,
point
yeah,
five.
yeah.
Because I'm someone who doesn't press very hard when I write. So like
Ah.
I write fast and I don't exert a lot of pressure, so I liked the
Uh-huh.
point .7. I would use the black pen for writing, and I would use the blue one for annotating. So if you have like a
Oh,
printed
wow.
page that you're marking up, you use the blue one, and that's the only time I would use the blue one. The
Oh,
rest of
I
the
love
time, only
this.
wrote in black
You
G2s.
have a system.
It was a real system, and like I took such pride in the G2s because they're great pens. They are
Mhm.
famous for, I believe they have written in space. I think it's the
Oh,
G2 and maybe some
wow.
others from the lines, but I remember this and I would tell people this, like, "Do you know this pen has written in space in zero gravity?"
Oh my
And
goodness.
I was just very proud of that. I still consider the G2 the ideal pen in my opinion, but
Uh-huh.
there's a little bit of preference, but just like the weight of it, like the diameter of the, just like the grip, like everything to me
Yeah.
made the G2 the perfect pen
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
until
Oh,
in the last couple of years,
uh-huh.
and it's It could be. I don't know if the manufacturing has changed or if I had a lot of G2s sitting around that I didn't use for a long time. So I used to write more,
Mhm.
and then I think there were some years, maybe after COVID, where I was journaling less. I was just using pens a lot less. So I had a bunch of
Yeah.
G2s that just sat, and maybe that's not very good for the lifespan of the
Oh,
pen.
okay. Okay.
But I kept having this problem, and no one else has. I asked some people, no one else has had this problem, but it could also be that a lot of people don't write with pens anymore. And this is not to knock the G2, which
Mm.
I adore. It could be
Mhm,
me and
mhm,
my treatment of
mhm,
it. But I
mhm.
kept having this problem where the ball of the pen would suddenly pop out, and then just like you couldn't write with it. Ink would go everywhere, and
Wow.
like it would just, and it wasn't like I was writing so furiously. It was just I could feel it coming
Wow.
on, and then the ball would go.
Oh my gosh. Like, how I guess,
Yeah.
how does that look?
It's you're writing and then suddenly you feel this thing, the ball pops out, and there's
Uh-huh.
this weird, very fine like stick that I think must be somehow attached to the ball normally. And then like I think the
Uh-huh.
ball controls that and it
Oh, wow.
the ink flow goes around it. I'm not that is a good question. Um and I realized you can fix it by you take the refill of the G2. Maybe I'm going too deep for people. I'll go quick. But you
Yeah.
can swap out the tip. It's a little
Uh-huh.
messy and you tend to use a little to lose some ink.
Ah, okay, okay,
And
okay.
so it kept happening enough and the G2s are a little expensive. You know, they're worth
Yeah.
it and they last a long time, but it was like
Yeah.
this keeps happening. This is frustrating. And I thought, let me just go see what else is out there. And
Uh-huh.
I found two Daiso pens that I think are very
Ooh.
good for the price point. Again, it's a matter of
Oh.
personal preference,
Uh-huh.
but there's one that I think they're both gel ballpoint pens. One of them is
Uh-huh.
clicky. It's almost identical to the G2. I mean, it's
Uh-huh.
not exactly, but it's trying to be the G2. And another one is
Uh-huh.
like a pen with a cap.
Uh-huh.
And I was pleasantly surprised that I think it's a point 0.5 diameter, but it's
Uh-huh.
much scratchier than a G2, and I
Ah.
really like that. I feel almost as if
Oh.
I'm writing with like a quill or a fountain pen, which is
Can I
I think difficult if you're left-handed. Yeah, tell me more.
Okay, no, 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 I'm just having a I don't even know what the word for this is. Okay, so I have watched you writing a lot,
Uh-huh.
because at some point you and I would have coffee dates where we would go to cafe and I think we
Mhm.
would write or something.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I
In
often read and I think
graduate school.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think you would write quite a bit, and I remember, like, watching you write, but then later, whenever I saw your handwriting, I think it was something about your handwriting, it looked like it was written with a quill. Like, that was something I always thought, like, just that your writing looks like it's written with a quill, and so,
Mm.
somehow it makes sense that you like a scratchier implement
Mhm. Yeah.
because that's kind of what your writing looks like.
Yeah. And you know what? I can make the full connection. You were totally right, and I can
Uh-huh.
reveal the secret of my handwriting,
Tell
which is
me.
that at maybe like I think I must have been like 10 or 11 or something. It's like just at
Uh-huh.
the age when you're like, did you ever choose your handwriting?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay. We'll have this discussion. And then we'll take it to etiquette. But I had somehow gotten wind of the 90s, early 2000s TV show Charmed. Do you know about
Uh-huh.
this?
I
I don't
know
think
about
you
the
were in
show, but I've
America.
never
Yeah.
watched it. I haven't seen it.
Yeah. I think it was still happening at the time. I don't think it
Uh-huh.
was a very good show, but it was the kind of show that like captured the soul of like a not very goth, but like goth
Uh-huh.
leaning 10
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
11-year-old or
Yeah,
something. It's
yeah.
like these witches who are sisters, and
Oh.
that's most of the show. Like
Oh my
they're like
gosh.
fighting the powers of darkness. It's not like, anyway.
Yeah.
And the logo for that show is what my
Uh-huh.
handwriting is based on. Is it's the word charmed and it's in this very like
Oh
sort
my
of like
goodness. I'm going to have to
wannabe
look this up as
eldritch.
we
Yeah, if
speak.
you look
I'm
at
very
it, if
sorry.
it's got
I'm
this sort
looking
of
it up
like
as we
witchy look
speak.
to it.
I am looking this
And I
witchy look. No wonder your handwriting has always looked so witchy. Oh,
I
that's it.
very
Oh, yeah.
deliberately tried to copy this witchy look.
This
I
is
think I do a
great.
few things a little bit different. Like I put these really long tails on the letter
I
N
can't believe this. This is
that is the
wonderful.
origin of it. I'm so happy you're proud of the story. So my handwriting is a combination of that, and also I think I just tend to write very flat letters because I'm
Uh-huh.
writing fast. I know you don't have
Mhm.
to, but when I'm writing nicer, it looks more like Charmed, and when I'm writing just like blah, it's a weird mixture of
This explains
scripty
so
and
much.
flat.
I love
So that
this.
was my
The
handwriting
connection has
choosing
been made.
story.
Oh my
The
goodness.
connection has been
Vivian,
made.
this is magical. This is lovely.
Magical
I never
secret has been
thought
told.
I would never have thought, "Oh, this is wonderful." Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
tell me about choosing your handwriting.
Oh,
'Cause I think to bring it to etiquette, a handwritten note is very you learn a lot about a person from their handwriting. You know, even
this
if
is
not, like, reading your
true.
personality or you I mean, not in the sense of, like it's not like that science of people reading people's shape of your skull to determine who you
Uh-huh,
are, right? Like, it's not that
uh-huh,
level
uh-huh.
of
Yeah, yeah,
scientific, but
yeah.
you can garner information about
You can
someone
garner
from
information.
their
I've
handwriting.
always been a believer of this. I think you
Yes.
can. I really do think you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think this also ties in with my handwriting story, which is,
Mhm.
um, so so when I was a child, like, we actually had handwriting class. Like, we actually had
Okay.
a class, and I
Penmanship.
think
Was it called penmanship?
no, this was in Saudi Arabia. I think it was just called
Okay,
handwriting. The class itself was called
great.
handwriting. Um, I know, but, like, we had handwriting, like, in English, and we had handwriting in Arabic, and so, like, we would have
Mhm.
these, like, we'd have these, like, notebooks that would have,
Mm.
like you know those connected dots, and then you have
Yep.
to trace over it, and so we had
Yep.
that in Arabic, we had it in English, and
Yep.
I remember we first learned how to write and print, and then we were taught cursive. And
Okay.
I remember, very shortly after they taught us cursive, they said, "Well, you don't really use it typically, you only use it in formal settings." There's some weird situation around cursive where, like, they taught it to us, but then told us to not really use it, and
Yep.
my rebellion was to use it. And so my
Oh.
handwriting is, it's basically cursive, but it's
Mm.
very straight. Like, it doesn't have the
Mhm.
slant that cursive
Yep.
usually has.
Doesn't have the
Um
slant. Yeah.
and it's quite, um it can be illegible if you're somebody who is not used to cursive,
Mhm.
um, and like, people hated it. Like, people tried to get me to change it, and the more they tried to get me to change it, the more, like, I dug my heels in, and,
Yeah.
that is why my handwriting is what it is today.
Yeah. It's a story of rebellion.
Yes, but it's not as good as yours, like, Charmed, this is insane. This is lovely. I can't believe it. It's like a font. You chose your font. This is
I
great.
chose my But, okay, so your handwriting the other thing I've noticed about it, having seen it, is it's to me, it's quite small.
Ah,
Yeah.
interesting. Huh.
I don't
I
know if that's just a function of, like I think when I've seen your handwriting, it's usually in, like, like, unlined notebooks or
Mm,
something or, like, a small piece of paper.
uh-huh.
Um,
It
but
looks about the
yeah.
same size as yours, I thought. Maybe?
I like having lines. This is so our
Oh,
personalities. I like
this
having
is
lines, so
so our
mine will
personality.
fit the size of the line, and I tend not to like the lines too small.
Ah,
Um, and I think without lines, my handwriting tends to get bigger.
ah. I hate lines. This is great. I never
I
thought
did go
about this.
through I had a phase when I really liked writing with no lines,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, I don't know, having
Oh, this is
lines.
great.
It makes me add a little more space, which I like.
Ah, yeah, and it makes me feel like I'm wasting paper, because I want to
Yeah.
Oh, wow. This is great.
Yeah, cursive rebellion. Does
Charmed.
your do your English and Arabic handwriting have any connection?
I think that you know what? I think my handwriting being too small is a problem for Arabic. Like, that was something
Hmm.
people brought up, that it was too small.
Did you double down and make it even smaller?
Sometimes, yes. Yeah, 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 yeah.
No.
I always just wanted to be more dainty as a human, and somehow I thought, like, if my handwriting
Oh.
was dainty, I would be dainty. So it's more
Oh,
aspirational.
dainty. No, there is a slight daintiness to your handwriting, I think.
It's
It
daintier than
is
I
a little
am.
linked. It's quite dainty. And you look
Yeah.
like someone who doesn't press very hard on the paper, which
I
I
press
think of as a
extremely
dainty.
hard on the paper.
Do you?
I
Oh.
do. I do. And then I use all my the way I okay, so my father used to hate this. I think he still hates it. I use, like, more fingers to grip my writing implement than I think most
Oh,
people do. So,
I
like,
can
I'll
see
hold the
that as you're
pencil like this.
demonstrating. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
and
That's a
my dad
5-finger grip.
it's great. And my dad would get so mad. He'd be like, "You do this, you use 3." And for me, 3 was, like, not enough. It's, like, spindly, it's falling out, like, it's not working.
Oh.
So I would grip mine
Oh,
and, like,
wow.
dig down and write tiny.
Well,
Yeah, I use
yeah,
all,
you
yeah.
know, I'm suddenly realizing I have a very loose grip. I think I'm a three-finger grip, and I've adjusted
Oh,
in a way that I hold the pen very loosely as I write so fast and I press so lightly, and
wow.
this is why I drop pens on their tip. I think it just sometimes, like, flies out of my
Oh my
hand.
gosh! This explains so much. This
This
is why
explains
I never drop
everything.
pencils. This explains everything.
Yep. Yep, alright, well, this is everything you need to know about a person from their handwriting. We have proved that actually this is true
I have
science
so many
very
questions. This is
well.
great.
The only other thing we had thought of to say was, stationery review websites. Because when I was
Uh-huh,
thinking about swapping off the G2,
uh-huh.
I still treasure it in my heart as a very fine to me, it's the highest of pens. Like, when I need
Uh-huh.
something important, I'm writing
Yeah,
something important, it's a G2. If there's only
yeah,
one pen in my bag, it's a G2.
yeah, yeah,
But, I was like, "Let me see what other people say." Is I once had a
yeah.
friend in grad school,
Uh-huh,
his name was Ivan. I'm not sure if I ever
uh-huh,
told you, but I didn't know Ivan very well, but something I knew
uh-huh.
was that Ivan was like a self-proclaimed, like, pen connoisseur. I'm think he would
Really?
say this of himself. He had
This is
over
fantastic.
100 different pens, and
No.
one day, he was kind
Uh-huh.
enough to let me go over to his apartment and try all the pens, and I felt
No!
like he was so kind and generous. I felt like I was in Ollivanders. I felt like I was
Oh
being
my
presented
goodness.
with one implement after another, and he would say, not like "Tail of Phoenix,"
Uh-huh,
"Bendy
uh-huh.
oak," or,
Oh
"Rigid,"
my
whatever.
goodness.
He would be like he had the specific terms for how scratchy a pen was, and, like, he had terminology, and he was so generous in letting me try out pen after pen, and I have to confess I left still thinking that the G2 was the optimal pen, but it depends on you, right? It depends on your
Yeah.
writing style, how much you wanna refill, like, your angle. It actually is. There's no way to say which is the greatest pen. It has a lot to do with finding a good pen that fits you, like the one choosing the wizard.
Wow. This might be, like, the only time in my life, I think, that I have felt true jealousy over an experience somebody had. Because, like, it truly, I typically like, I don't covet others' experiences, but this experience is one that can never be recreated. Like, I can never I will
Yeah,
never have a situation where a human invites me over to their place for me to try out all their pens. This is a dream. This is
it really
lovely.
was. It
Oh
was
my
really
goodness.
special because, like, it wouldn't even be this fun in a shop. Like, I think I'm saying Ollivanders because that's a special case, right? Where
Yeah.
they really want you to walk out with the
Yeah,
perfect
yeah,
one for
yeah.
you. But if you
Yeah,
just went to even a nice stationery I always feel very self-conscious when I try on lots of
yeah.
things, even if you must, like
And
the
it's
the
not
few times I've
curated.
shopped for. Yeah, but I feel like it's silly, but, like, I feel like I'm, like, wasting their sample or something, or, like,
Mm.
it's just like,
Yeah.
but trying all these pens, yeah, they were great.
Uh-huh.
This was I
Oh,
think I was talking about pen reviewing websites. So my friend
yes.
Ivan, true
Uh-huh.
connoisseur of pens, collector,
Uh-huh.
used them,
Uh-huh.
guy had the hat trick of 3 MFAs and a PhD. So he wrote
No.
a lot. Yeah. Haven't told you about Ivan?
I don't even remember who this person is. Like, I
I
cannot
may not
remember
have brought him
either.
up yeah. A good
You
guy.
may not have.
Good
Okay.
guy.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
Um, but, wrote a lot. That's I don't know even know that much about. Was not very close to him, but I liked him. But I say this to say I was looking up I thought, "Let me go see what, the online pen reviewing site
Uh-huh.
scene is like." And I think in my mind, I pictured somebody a little like my friend Ivan, who
Uh-huh.
was who could appreciate such a wide range of pens. Clearly you have your
Mm.
preferences, but he was like almost like a drinker who liked
Yeah.
all whiskeys and
Yeah,
could
yeah, yeah.
find something, and I was a little taken aback at how
Uh-huh.
mean stationery review websites seem to me. People
Oh,
seem
wow.
very nitpicky. I mean, I went on a handful of blogs, and it's not I thought it would be a little bit maybe if I went on Instagram. Like, I think there has to be
Yeah.
somewhere, some corner of the internet that is more I thought it would be more saturated
Mm.
because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
people, but also, gosh, there's not that many people who handwrite with pens anymore. It's becoming a little like of a
Yeah.
niche thing, and so maybe
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
part
yeah.
of the mean crabbiness or
Yeah.
something. But people
Yeah.
said really, I thought, very mean things about the G2. Like,
Wow.
they would pick on it, and like the thing that people kept saying it was boring.
It
Like
was
they couldn't
boring? That was
find
their oh my goodness.
that was their insult because they couldn't find fault with the design of the pen, which is to me perfection.
Oh
For
my
a budget pen.
goodness.
Like, they'll say like it's for this price point, right? If you're spending $20 on a pen, you're in a different
Yeah.
category, and they acknowledge that this is a mass market pen, but they
Yeah.
would say it was boring.
That's a terrible insult. But I just realized something while you were talking. Let me look this up and make sure it's not the wrong thing. But
Yeah.
I believe actually. Here, 1 second.
I almost
This
felt
is
like I
in-
shouldn't leave the G2. I felt like I should stay and defend it. But no, I have partially gone over to the Daiso pens because they are much more affordable. Their quality has been superb.
Okay, so there's a Wirecutter article on the best pens, and for some reason I thought the G2 was the top one, but no, it's actually the Uniball something something. The Uniball Jetstream RT.
I refuse to use any Uniballs because they're I'm realizing as soon as you drop them, they break. And you don't even have to drop them on their tip. You can drop them in any fashion. Once they hit a hard floor in my youth, the Uniball was dead. And so I could never.
This is great. I loved the Uniball. Especially their colored ones. They used to have these colored like the body was gray, but then there was like a panel and you could see the
the colors are beautiful.
Those are my favorite. Like there's a certain blue on that and there's like a purple. Oh my gosh, I used to love that. Those are my favorite pens. They were so beautiful. And they were scratchy because they like the point of it was scratchy.
Yep.
And they wrote finely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I respect Wirecutter. The Uniball is a fine pen. Uniball
no,
line.
specifically the Uniball Jetstream RT.
Okay. I don't know if I've used that one.
Model. I bought it and I didn't quite like it. Yeah. I think your Pilot G2 is probably better because I remember using a Pilot G2. I liked those. I like those.
Quality pens. But anyway, I've steered us so far off course. There's so many wonderful topics. We were not able to record for a while, so we are overflowing with things to say. But I have our topic for a day and then our question for the day. And I want to get your input because I have not quite made up my mind about these things.
Okay.
My topic for the day, I don't even have a great story to introduce it. It's just a question I've had kicking around in my head for a long time. Okay. And that is, how much should you read and watch forwarded content? So someone has forwarded you a link or an article or a video or a picture or something. It's come to you in some form from different people. What is the etiquette surrounding this?
Okay. So this is something that has been this is a problem that is near and dear to my heart. Because someone I'm very close to has been sending me, I would say on average, 5 or 6 different links on Instagram per hour for the last...
Per hour?
Per hour, roughly. For the last, I don't know, 2 months. And it's all like political stuff. And if he sees me on my phone on Instagram, he will immediately be like, did you see the content that
no.
And so I have thought about this quite a lot. My solution to this is, if possible at all, to get a sense from the person, like how important it is to them that you see the thing. So like, so now I ask him, like, is there anyone in particular you really want me to see, or are there like a few you want me to see? And like we can see those. And so yeah, I just engage with it when I'm engaging with the person.
Oh, because he's someone you see in person a lot, so you build it into your in-person time.
Yes. Like, is there something you sent me that you really, really want me to see? And so that's how I've done this. I don't know if it's the best way to do it, but it's I just couldn't keep up. There was a lot.
No, there's a lot. So you're getting to the heart of something. I think I asked a friend about this in passing. And she said something like, sometimes something like this is an event in that, someone wants you to watch a video and have a conversation with them. That's an event. That's almost like a meetup. It's a full interaction that this person is asking of you. And it's not something you can do on the fly. I mean, it depends on the situation, right? But especially if it's something political, you're being asked to like digest information and have a response or a conversation, or something else. Like that's just one example. But sometimes it's almost an ask for a hangout, right? It's like, let's
Yeah.
watch this together. Let's
It's
share
an
our thoughts on this
engagement, right?
thing. It's
Yeah.
an engagement in like the
Yeah.
ancient sense of the word, like the
Right.
pre-Instagram sense of the
Yeah, yeah,
word.
yes.
It is a social
It's a
engagement
social
as like
engagement.
that a Jane Austen character would block off an afternoon for,
Yes.
you know?
It would be part of
In
the
fact,
correspondence.
I'm happy you said the word correspondence, and I'm remembering that you can see this in like Jane Austen books and of the like. This ties the two things together. Sometimes a character will say, "I'm spending this afternoon writing letters,"
Uh,
and they will allocate a morning or an hours writing
yeah.
letters. And it's because they're thoughtful, lengthy letters. They're not just like passing reactions.
Yeah.
You're responding to someone's thoughts. You're maybe telling some stories. You're writing it down with your quill pen, which is taking a long
Oh.
time.
Oh, yeah.
It
Yeah, yeah,
was
yeah.
it was a whole afternoon. It was you went and did the thing. It was asynchronous, but it was like hanging out with
Yeah.
Lady Bradbury or whoever it was you were
Yeah.
speaking to.
Oh, that's
It was
really
an
good.
event.
Yeah, it was an
And
event.
s and so I think a certain amount of forwarded content fits more in that category. And
I
I think
never
the way
heard
that you're
of that.
sifting through it, and especially if it's someone you already see in person, right? That's the sort of like
Yeah.
sometimes if it's someone I've started doing this sometimes where if I have something and I really want to react, to have the experience of sharing it with that person, I'll actually
Uh-huh.
wait till I see them in person if I can
That's
and be like,
good.
"Let me show you this video," and then we watch
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
together or
Oh, I
something, or,
like
like,
that.
"Let me show you this cute picture," like,
Yeah.
and it helps that's easiest if you are seeing the person regular, like, sometimes colleagues or, like, family, I know I'm gonna see them, and so I'll purposely wait. I won't forward it to them, and I'll wait till I see them, and then we'll do it together.
I think that sounds that sounds like what I feel like we are so well aligned on this matter because that is what I was doing
That's
essentially,
what you're
right? To my
doing,
friend.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
manage the volume because it's a real
Mhm.
volume thing
It is
sometimes.
a volume thing, yes. I really like thinking of it as a call for some sort of, like an event, like, like an
Mhm,
engagement. I really,
mhm.
really like that. Um, the way of hanging out.
Yeah, it's a way of hanging out. And so, let's think about the other end, right? Where it's not a way of hanging out, it's like a meme. It's like a 2 second,
Mm,
and not the kind of meme that's like, like a Twitter post that's actually like a
yeah,
small essay, like that kind
yeah,
of, that's not but like a really quick image, I would say is the fastest thing. And then
yeah.
in the middle you have, I personally put video on the farthest end. I am the most reluctant to watch a video. I just hate it. I really do. I
Mhm.
almost never watch videos people send me. That is my secret in a way, I
Uh-huh,
think. Like that's one filter. I almost never
uh-huh.
watch videos. Um,
Mm,
and then in the middle you have like reading an article, listening to a song or something. Like I think anything in real time I put on the furthest end because you're asking very
yeah.
specifically for this much time of a person. So I think a factor is the scale of how big of an ask it is, right? And then the way to balance
Mhm,
that is like the importance of the relationship, I guess,
mhm.
and maybe
Yeah.
the frequency with which they ask, which factors into man, I think I feel so resentful almost because it's an ask for your time. It's an ask for your engagement and participation.
Mhm.
And it's easy if it's something you already want to see or
Uh-huh.
interact with or something. Then we're not
Mhm.
even. That's not an issue.
Right,
But it
right.
becomes an issue if it's like a little bit of a hurdle, if it's taking a lot of time, if it's something I'm realizing I think I just don't mentally allocate the time sometimes, right? If you think you're
Mm.
opening a text and having a conversation and suddenly they slip in like a 10-minute article, that is
Mhm,
just
mhm,
something unaccounted for.
mhm.
Um, on the other hand, a share is a nice thing. Sometimes you find really cool things. Sometimes someone
Yeah,
shares something delightful with you, and it's
yeah.
a way to sort of hang out, like you said. And hopefully, there are some people, whether from the closeness of the relationship or just knowing they have sent something
Mhm,
kind of interesting. I think I'll almost
mhm,
always
mhm,
go look. I have had one or two friends,
mhm.
especially friends I know, but I'm not super like day to day talking too close to. And I was kind of
Uh-huh.
taken aback when one or two have said, I will take any book recommendation from you.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not trying to flatter myself because I think it's mutual. There's some people whom I might not take every book. I might not go read every book, but I'll hold their valuation very highly.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I do have one or two friends, and maybe I just fit in their life of like the person who recommends them books the most, and we have similar
Mhm,
tastes.
mhm.
I'm always kind of flattered and surprised when someone actually does read, especially a whole book, unless you've
Oh.
recommended it for a very specific purpose. That's like a long end of forwarded content, maybe. That's almost like
Yeah.
taking a recommendation. Maybe this is a little different. That's a recommendation rather than
Mhm.
a forward, but I think they have
Right.
some stuff in common.
I
And there's
think
also how
so.
much you expect the other person
Yes. Yes. So
to engage with your
typically,
content.
I think
Mhm.
you know what I think? This is one of those
Mm.
situations where I'm so sorry. There's an allergy. I think I have
No, go ahead.
pollen. So
Okay.
I think there's like a pretty interesting like balancing that happens. So one, only somebody who is very close to you would I think typically would be comfortable sending that many things, right? Like would be comfortable with a large volume of forwarded content. In my experience, like I think typically it's only been like people I'm very close to,
Mm.
because otherwise, like, why would you do that?
Mm.
Yeah. So it's only ever been someone I'm really close to, and then typically that's the kind of person that would understand if you don't engage with it as well, because that's part of the closeness of the relationship.
Mm.
So I think there's like a self
Hmm.
like there's a way in which this is this is a bid for engagement, but also like an awareness that this is a lot.
Mhm. It's a kind of
Um,
optional bid for
it's
engagement
like
in a
an
way.
auction bid, yeah, or even almost like a
Optional.
picture. Huh?
Mm.
Sorry, I didn't catch what you said.
Like, oh, sorry, optional, like,
Yeah.
maybe someone who sends a lot has the expectation that you're not reading a lot, and I'm gonna counter this in a second.
Well, I don't know that they have the expectation that you're not, um, but it's almost like it's a way to anchor a future conversation to something. Like, so they can say something like, "Oh, and I was reading this and this and this," which
Mhm.
I sent to you. Did you read it? Did you watch it? And then
Yeah,
so yeah. But you're about to say something.
because I think there are some people, maybe I was more one and thing, but who do expect you to engage with something that you've sent.
Mm. I was thinking of the volume of the person who sends 5 things every hour. So, um, I
Yeah,
think in any other
yeah,
circumstance, yes, I think the
yeah.
expectation is that you engage with every,
Okay, now here is a searing question. Have you ever pretended? Because I never used to do this, and
uh-huh.
sometimes now I do.
Have I ever pretended? I don't think so,
Hmm.
but but I think that, like, the degree of attention I've paid to something
Mhm.
maybe so low that I don't remember it, right? So, like, I remember having
Uh,
looked at it, but I don't actually remember the content because I hadn't, like, allocated that
sure.
much time. So,
Yeah.
it's almost like pretending in the sense that, like, you can say you've done the thing, but, like, you
Yeah.
really kind of truly, in a real sense,
Yeah.
haven't 'cause you just can't even remember it.
Yeah.
I don't
It's
know.
like talking to a child and not really having a deep conversation
Yeah,
with them.
something like that. It's like, yes, you could say you've seen it, but
Yeah.
and you'll recall
Yeah.
it, but I
Yeah.
would put that in the same category as pretending.
Hmm. So I'm trying to think what I've done recently. Okay, here's one. If someone sends me a video, I
Uh-huh,
might like tap into it, and
uh-huh.
once I get the gist of it, I might just reply like ha 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 or something.
Ah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
because I
yeah.
hate watching videos so much. Even when people send me videos, I think I might be interested. I find watching videos such a ugh.
Mm,
Um
I
yeah. I can't think of times when I have faked reading an article. I think if people know that I'm not being demanded to read articles a lot or something.
mm, mhm.
But I'll do it. It's a little bit of it's a low engage. Like I don't have illusions about this being proper engagement with something. Maybe it's like if
Mm,
someone comes to you from someone important in some way and you don't really want to wallow through the whole thing,
uh-huh.
but you don't want to just not touch it if it's important to the other person.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But yeah, I think something I've appreciated, a trick I picked up from a friend was she'll forward me stuff or recommend stuff or mention stuff. And she'll always say, no obligation to check this out. And I know she means it. And maybe that's what maybe it's more of a baseline with forwarded content than I thought. But I don't know. To me, it's like it's okay if it's an offer. I don't love when it's an imposition. Because it's an interaction that maybe someone didn't ask for.
I really enjoy the example of what the high etiquette behavior would be, which is that what your friend does, which is she puts a little disclaimer, that you don't have to read it, or
yeah. Oh, and you know what I like about this is a big one. She's always telling me what her thoughts are on the thing and why she's sending it to me. She has a personal story about it. And I think the worst end of forwarded stuff is if you're trying to have a conversation with someone, it's like I go, "Hey, what's an eternal pencil?" And you just send me a link on what eternal pencil is.
The worst. Oh my goodness.
I think that's the worst kind of forwarded content, where you're bypassing the interaction.
Yeah. Oh, that is the worst. That's very passive aggressive.
I think of it as kind of passive aggressive. And I get that some people just feel like maybe it's like, oh, this explains it better than I could, so let me send it to you. And sometimes that's fine. But like, I want to hear your thoughts on it, like even if your explanation, like we don't remember, I looked it up while we were talking about the 2BHB thing, but it's not, I don't exactly want the answer necessarily. I can look it up myself. I want to talk about it. And I think sometimes forwarded content, maybe I'm realizing when I engage with forwarded content, like those are the relationships and spaces where we're having a mutually pleasant interaction that fits in our time zones and slots.
Yes.
And the forwarded content I tend to dismiss is when it feels a little more one-sided, or like this is lopsided in some way.
Yeah. Yes. It's not part of the whatever conversation on asynchronous or synchronous that's happening between the two of you.
Yeah. So, but it's a little awkward. I won't admit to most people how much unless we're very close, I don't think I'll
I think it's fortunate that you have a number of people in your life that do this to you, though.
The forwarding things, actually, that's kind of a way of thinking.
Yeah, because I really don't. I think there's 3 people that do this in my entire life, and you are one of those 3. Yes, people don't send me. Yeah, you are one of 3 people. It's you. It's the friend I was talking about earlier, and my brother-in-law. That's it.
Oh.
The whole wide world. Okay, but I'm not counting WhatsApp channels, right, with multiple people on it. I'm not counting that.
Yeah, that's a different beast. Like
I'm not
big
counting
groups.
that.
Yeah, that's something else. Yeah, that's almost like a forum discussion.
Yeah, but 1-to-1, I only have 3 people in my life that send me things.
Well, that kind of answers my question, a way of like, it's a privilege. It is a relation and engagement. This is at least giving me some ways to think about it. And I think in this case, the etiquette is more about, it's so internal, right? Because it's so easy to bluff, to just put up an etiquette front, but determining what interaction you want with it and what it is serving, it's giving me some. I'm realizing you almost never forward me anything. I think I send you stuff, and I tell you don't have to look at it, but like
I love it.
I get so little from you besides like food pictures.
I actually really do love it. And I'm going to admit, and I don't know if you're going to like this admission, but it is one of my favorite bathroom companions, because like it's like when it is the perfect, like when I'm in the bathroom, I have this sort of undivided attention to this, and there's nothing else I want to look at my phone when I'm in the bathroom. It's like, there's all this stuff that I received earlier that I didn't get to look at, and then I just sit down and I have stuff to read.
Messages.
It's great. It's like, there's all this curated material from the world that is interesting because, you know me, and I think we have similar interests. So I have a lot of fun reading all of it, like
it's just enough to fill your bathroom time.
It's great. And say you go to the bathroom 6 or 7 times a day. Okay, say 6, right? I mean, it's perfect. It's exactly, really, it fits into all of that. It's good.
I talked to a friend. I was asking how much we were talking about social media time, and she said she only looks at social media when she's in the bathroom, and that's her like time-bounded
That's how
way.
I do it too. That is how I do it too. That is the best.
You guys.
Maybe that's why I don't send you things, though. Should I send you more things?
No, I don't need more things. Your presence is very plentiful.
Because
Yeah. I'm
my
not very
social
good
media
about keeping
time
up with
okay,
Yeah.
okay. No,
Yeah.
because my social media time is reading your things in the bathroom, so I don't know that I'd have to
You don't
carve
have
out some extra
dissemination
time.
time.
Yeah, dissemination time would have to be an additional step. I need to find some time for this.
Your equivalent of an afternoon spent writing letters.
Yes. No, I really
Well,
do appreciate what you send me. And because you're one of 3, I can actually pay attention. I think if there were more
yeah.
people, it probably wouldn't be the case.
Yeah. No, it's correspondence like any other. And
Yeah.
on that note, we have a listener question for the
Mhm.
day. It comes to us from Henry
Mhm.
from Amherst, Massachusetts. It goes like this. Dear No Etiquette, I have recently started seeing a new therapist. However, this has made my first therapist, who I am still seeing, jealous. How do I manage my therapist's feelings about each
This is such a great question. I wanna hear what you think, and then I'll obviously I'll put him back. I'm so curious. How would you deal with that?
This is going to sound very cold. I think it has to. I remember having this conversation with another friend before I started going to therapy and coaching and the like.
Uh-huh.
And she had been going to therapy for some time. And the way she put it, she knew it was
Mhm.
it sounds a little misanthropic, but
Uh-huh.
it was like she can have a conversation with someone whom she doesn't have to treat like a human being. And this sounds very cool. She was not like an
Oh,
abusive person, but it was like, it's almost like a service. It's like going to see the doctor or something. You don't
okay.
have to care about
Okay.
your doctor's emotions because your
Mhm.
doctor is there to treat you. She's
Mm.
not being like abusive and heartless to this. She's not like treating this person like a subhuman
Yeah.
being, but she's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
having to spend any emotional energy on this other person as you would in a relationship is
Fascinating.
how she sees
Uh-huh.
therapy. Um, and so I think if that's your approach, you can be very cut and dried about it. I think it also depends on how much your therapist is making emotional appeals
Yeah.
to you.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
I personally, I have never seen more than one therapist at a time, but there have been times when I realized it was a lot. But I was seeing a therapist, I was seeing a personal coach who was partly a friend of mine who was trying to get a certification, needed to do his hours, but it worked out for both of us.
Uh-huh.
I was seeing a spiritual director who was also a
Uh-huh.
friend getting trained in spiritual direction. I saw it as I felt very lucky that
Uh-huh.
I had made friends who were going into these wisdom
Yeah.
professions and
Yeah.
saw me as a good training person in a good
Oh.
way.
Yeah.
Like, I was
Yeah, yeah,
someone who
yeah.
could use some help in some areas, because we all
Yeah.
can, but
Yeah.
someone who would not be too trying as someone who was
Mm.
new.
Ah. Oh, this
Um,
is lovely. I love that you have
and
friends
I
like that.
I think I peaked at about 3. Sometimes I would see them all in the same week and then maybe talk to you and
Oh.
another friend and kind
Uh-huh.
of I
Uh-huh.
knew that things were overlapping and I would talk to them
Uh-huh.
about one another, but I
Uh-huh.
personally, kind of gave them little niches. I gave them little portions of my
Mm.
life to look after, so
Yeah,
they
yeah,
were a
yeah.
little subject focused.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
I didn't have to deal with them, so I think maybe it could be tense if you were seeing them for the same issue and they have, how do you put it? Like, when you see a doctor and you get like dissenting opinions, like
Or like a second opinion
like
or,
yeah, and they clash.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know what the term would be for that.
Yeah.
But, I think that's really,
Um,
wise, what you've said, because I think it addresses, like, the primary discomfort or I mean, the primary reason for jealousy, right, is to feel like you're being replaced somehow or that you're not
mhm,
good enough.
yeah. Or
But what you're
someone is liked more than
describing
you in a role or
yes,
something.
like some sort of comparison happening, and,
Mhm, comparison.
um, and I think what you have done is actually a very classy way of dealing with it, which is very clearly defining the role that each, um, you know, therapist is
Mm,
playing, so that you don't
yeah,
feel like you're not being compared. It's a very apples and oranges type of situation.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, I managed them. I managed them like a team.
you did. You managed them like a team. They had their own tasks, and they were not even. Yes. So that's. I think that's a great way to handle it.
So they were
Um,
non-competing.
they were
Yeah.
non-competing, and that was yeah. And so
Yeah.
there was nothing to be jealous about.
Hmm.
Uh, that's great. That's the way to do it.
But I can imagine, say you're seeing 2 therapists and you really want 2 opinions, right? Like
Mhm,
maybe something
mhm.
is very difficult, vexing, challenging, maybe
Mhm.
you do or don't like what one of them has to say, but you're missing something or you feel like they don't really get it.
Yeah, yeah. So this has actually happened to me. So I was seeing two therapists at one point. Um, one was one was like a couples counselor, and the other was just
Mhm.
for me. Um,
Mhm.
and I found that the jealousy would happen when I would discuss things that the couples counselor or areas that the couples counselor was addressing that were centering on me only, right? So,
Mm.
and that will happen in couples counseling, right? Even
Yeah.
if it's relational, there'll be points, and
Yeah.
and I and that was where I saw the jealousy, and I don't think I managed it very well. Like I don't think I did what you did. I think um, if anything, I think that the way that um, something about how I was delivering that information was making that person feel like they had to was making one of my therapists feel like they had to defend their approach
Mm.
or that they had an approach that was better. Like the
Yeah.
comparison thing came into play in a
Yeah.
way that I think if I'd handled it a little closer to how you did, maybe it would not have happened.
Well, I don't think I'm the perfect solution because I'm kind of this is an unusual case, right? Where I was able
Mhm.
to just sort of keep them separate, like rabbits that
Mhm.
you don't
Mhm.
want to fight with one another. You just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
separate them with walls.
Yes, that's smart.
Um,
That's how to do it.
I, I, but you can't always do that. And
It's true.
yeah, it's, I think I can think of a situation where I have been an editor on a team of editors before, and it was
Uh-huh.
very tense if the editors disagreed on
Ah.
something. I think that's it wasn't jealousy, it was more
Oh.
just like fury.
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
can see
yeah.
a little bit of that feeding into the jealousy too, right? Where you're jealous
Yeah.
where you also think the other person is wrong in their
Yes.
opinion.
Yes, 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 yes. You can
And
see this.
I don't I almost felt with editing, I felt like it was and I was in two minds about it. I felt like you needed some professional pride to really
Mhm.
feel like your opinion was right.
Yeah.
And there was a day when I realized, oh, professional pride is just pride. Maybe that sometimes there's different ways to do it, and it really
Ah.
is like an ego thing beyond
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
task at a certain point.
Yeah.
I don't know how we did not manage it very well as editors. I think we did the separating rabbits thing. We would sometimes just
Yeah.
say like, "All right, you're not working on this project
Yeah.
together." We would just split
Yeah,
up
yeah.
as far as possible. When we
Yeah.
had to agree, we would try to do like a majority vote or something. But yeah,
Mm.
we did not manage ourselves all that well. I wonder
It's
how
inherently
one
a
would do it with the
difficult
teachers.
situation though, right? Because 'Cause you're working on one
Yeah,
thing and then yeah.
yeah, you're competing and there's one way it can go.
Yeah.
It's even harder when it's your therapist trying to help your psychological well-being.
Mhm, mhm.
Hmm.
It's true.
Okay. Something I felt is I think we need an injection of mischief energy, as we promise
Okay.
nonsense answers.
Uh-huh,
What are
uh-huh,
some
uh-huh.
nonsense ways to handle? And maybe this will lead us somewhere interesting.
A nonsense way to handle the jealousy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, okay, so this is not nonsense. This is maybe more of the mischief, or maybe it's neither. Um,
Hmm.
I if I had, yeah, see, what I would have done if I was a little bit
Mhm.
more mischievous in the situation is I would have said
Yeah.
straight out to my therapist, "Are you jealous?"
Mm. Would you go, do you
And then
want to talk about it?
yeah, exactly, I would turn the tables. I'd be like, "Would you like to talk about this? I sense that I sense some conflict," or something. I would just call them out on it.
Addressing it head on?
Or just address it head on. But that's not very mischievous, that's just
It's pretty mischievous. I think that's not how therapy usually goes. Yeah, that's one option. Just like straight up confront. Get it out in the
How would you
open.
do it? What would be your nonsense way of handling this?
Not I would so never but I would be curious to kind of like I wouldn't do this in life, but I almost want to egg them on to like see if they can like cross-examine each other's opinions almost. And
Oh,
this
that's
is if you
great.
don't care about someone's feelings and you just want to see them like cage fight or something.
Mm,
Like I'm trying to
mm,
imagine if I had maybe I've done it and maybe this is not nice. I don't know. I can imagine maybe I've had two friends give me competing advice. And
uh-huh,
depending on what terms they are on each other, I might
uh-huh,
ask them like, "Can you dissect why this person told me this?"
uh-huh, uh-huh,
And
uh-huh.
Okay, one good piece of this is getting into advice territory. One of the best things I
Uh-huh.
ever heard from a very wise friend was,
Uh-huh.
it seems so obvious, but she just said, everyone gives biased advice.
Ooh, that is very good.
Good, isn't it? I think
It
it's
is.
something but to hear it spelled out that way, everyone gives biased
Yes.
advice.
Yes, yes, yes.
It was specifically in the context of relationship advice, and it was so true because everyone's
Mm.
working from their own
Yeah.
history and their own baggage and the people they know
Yeah.
and what has happened to them and what they think is best. So their advice is exceedingly biased. Even good friends who
Absolutely.
give sound advice generally, it's biased.
Mhm, mhm.
Um,
Especially
and I
relationship
could
advice.
especially relationship advice. And so I could almost see if I were full of mischief energy, which one is in therapy because one is down and kicked by
Uh-huh,
the
uh-huh,
world. So one is
uh-huh,
not brimming with mischief energy,
uh-huh.
but almost like I think it would be especially juicy if there's slightly different methodologies going on here.
Mm.
Say my personal coaching friend and my spiritual, I would never set the two of them at each other's. I actually really tried to get them together in the sense of like maybe they could work together because I think they
Uh-huh.
had a lot of overlap. Anyway,
Ah,
but like, say you have different disciplines. You have your CBT, you
uh-huh.
have your spiritual direction, you have your
Yeah.
personal coaching, you have
Mhm,
your IFS,
mhm,
and
mhm.
you're like, "Tell me what's wrong with this person's approach." And someone who has, like, hitched their wagon to a separate
Uh-huh,
school can be like,
uh-huh.
"This is the problem with IFS," Or like, "This is the
Oh.
blind spots.
Uh-huh,
This is what
uh-huh,
this
uh-huh.
person who sees you in this way is not seeing that I see." Um,
Ah.
that's kind of what I would
That is very mischievous.
do.
It is very
It's a little
mischievous. I like
ruthless. It's
this.
a little
I mean, I actually think I think it's a good so I think unwittingly I did this to my therapist as well. Unwittingly, and like I wasn't trying to do this on purpose. And I think
Yeah.
what my therapist did is like I actually really like this. Um,
Mm,
like he tried to do that particular method. Like he tried to explore that. Like so for example, say I talked about CBT, uh,
mm.
and he would say, like, is this an issue that you'd want to explore? Using that framework, and like this is how we'd do it if I was to do it that way, and like
Right.
I think I think if anything, it kind of I guess maybe it depends on the person, but like makes them want to prove their expertise in
Yeah.
that area as well. Like instead, so you're not necessarily saying, "Oh, this is not a good." But it's like, "Oh no, but I know this thing too, and I'm
Yeah.
doing my thing. My thing is superior, but
Yep.
this thing works too. But I can do it, and I can show you, but
Yeah.
for reasons that are probably
Yeah.
yeah, have chosen this other thing."
Yeah. And you know what? I'm realizing this is exactly a thing that happened once. I was not trying to cage fight my therapist, but I
Uh
went
huh.
to her and she was more in the CBT camp. And I
Uh
was
huh.
so excited. I was like, I'm reading this book on IFS, which we know
Uh-huh,
stands for internal family systems, which I
uh-huh.
always call infernal family systems. Definitely some kind of Freudian slip
Uh-huh,
going on here. But I was like, just kind of jazzed about the book. And she was like,
uh-huh.
I know about it. Like, do you want to try it? Like, it's this. Like, I know it. And
Yeah,
you're right. I think it brings out some, because they had to study all of it, right? It brings out some
yeah,
kind of like, yeah, they got to prove they can do this one also. It's not their
yeah.
preferred one because they have their
They have the
reasons, but
reasons.
maybe it
Yeah.
brings out this. The last thing I'm thinking of in this model of like your competing therapist is it's almost like, I can't remember if this is specifically in The Godfather or something similar,
Mhm.
but any situation where you have like a boss and you have
Uh-huh,
your different conciliaries, your advisors, and you
uh-huh.
always want, I think there's only one in the Godfather movies, but like imagine a case where you have two and that you
Mhm.
pick two that give you different opinions and you're always
Oh,
pitting them against each other to
oh
like
my goodness.
refine them and like sharpen them and
Uh-huh,
make sure you get
uh-huh.
the best advice.
Actually
Um
really good as
and I
far
think
as
what you were
yeah.
saying with what you're saying with the methodology thing is maybe you turn this into an opportunity to
Oh,
demystify the process and like
uh-huh.
turn it into like this mega problem solving apparatus, and then you put
Yeah.
jealousy aside because now you're all in service of the same goal. Or
Yes,
maybe
yes.
like they can use their jealousy, maybe their motivation is their jealousy, which is fine if it is fuel for
Mm.
them.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, Man, this is like a fighter pet mentality to
No,
therapy.
I like the like earlier you said that you thought maybe professional pride really is just pride.
Mhm.
Because yeah, like I think ultimately it's about the, like, say you're an architect even, right? Like
Mhm.
at the I think you, at the end of the day, the vision that you're trying to enact is like your like the person for whom you're building the thing, right? Like what they want
Mhm.
is more important than what you want in a
Mhm.
certain way.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
You harness your minion's emotions, whether jealousy or otherwise, in service of your own
Yeah.
growth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If one wants to approach one's relationship with multiple therapists this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's our mischief advice, harnessing the power of jealousy in others to noble ends, perhaps. Well, that was fun. I feel like I wanted to remember to do this. I think I need to throw a wrench into our careful advice sometimes, 'cause that's what we're here for.
I think you're absolutely right.
'Cause I think of you as someone who is an expert at this. Like, you'll go for this odd head-on confrontation or something. Like,
Why, thank you.
you will pick a subversive method that attains great results, and I think that is a and you do so with flawless etiquette, in my opinion. So
I'm so flattered that I'm so flattered that I'm perceived this way by you. It's great.
good team. Good team.
So good. So
Well,
good.
that is our discussion for today. You can email us your questions, which we would be delighted to answer. Send them to noetiquettepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time here on No Etiquette. And until then, it is good etiquette. Express yourself in a handwritten note from time to time so that other people may appreciate the magnificence of your personality and the time you have taken for this asynchronous social engagement to write back to them.
Good night.